Okay, let's get started. We're launching into a deep dive today, focusing on just one source, and it's quite something. It's a really scorching article responding to what the author sees as, well, a potentially disastrous climate decision in Europe.
We're talking about Hamburg, right? Their goal for climate neutrality.
Exactly. Hamburg wants to hit total climate neutrality by 2040. That's incredibly ambitious.
And this author's take is less than supportive.
Oh, much less. The article we're dissecting calls the whole thing flat-out self-flagellation. Pretty strong language.
Wow, okay.
So just be clear up front. Our mission here isn't to debate whether climate goals are good or bad. That's not the point today.
Right. We're here to understand the specific arguments this author makes.
Precisely. We want you to be really well informed about the, frankly, extreme economic and social disaster scenarios predicted in this source material. Think of it as a case study in polemics.
So what happens, according to this one perspective, when environmental targets clash head-on with economic reality?
You got it. And if you want to read this particular analysis yourself, dive right in the link to the sources there in the video description. See the arguments we're about to break down.
Okay, so what jumps out immediately from this source is just the sheer scale of what Hamburg is aiming for.
Total neutrality by 2040.
Yeah, total. Meaning zero Croco-era emissions from everything, traffic, industry, how people heat their homes, electricity generation, everything after 2040.
And the author sees that total commitment as basically lighting the fuse on an economic bomb.
Guaranteeing costs and upheaval that, in their view, will fundamentally change the city, and not for the better.
And it's interesting because this wasn't some top-down decree, was it?
No, not at all. This actually came from the citizens, a referendum.
Right. A majority of voters in Hamburg backed this 2040 deadline.
So it's a democratic decision. But according to this source, it's a decision that paves the way for, well, potential economic collapse.
Let's get into the specifics then. Where does the author see the first big problem?
It really starts with the physical requirements, the infrastructure.
Heating, mainly.
Exactly. To hit climate neutrality, you have to massively cut or really eliminate fossil fuels for heating. That mostly means switching huge parts of the city over to electrical heating, like heat pumps.
Okay, and that puts all the pressure onto the electrical grid.
Tremendous pressure.
Let's pause on the technical side for a second. We hear about grid upgrades all the time. Why is this shift viewed as so catastrophic by the author?
Well, it's about capacity. The existing power grids, the cables under the streets, the substations, they were just never designed for that kind of peak load.
Peak load meaning everyone heating electrically at the same time.
Precisely. Imagine a cold winter day. Everyone turns on their electric heating. The demand for electricity just skyrockets way beyond what the current infrastructure can handle.
So the cables aren't just a bit old, they're physically not thick enough.
That's the argument. They're inadequate. The source insists this isn't just a minor upgrade or a software tweak. It's a complete replacement job, total infrastructure overhaul.
Which brings us back to that phrase the author uses again and again.
The ripping up of streets and laying of cables.
Yeah. It sounds incredibly disruptive, like a constant construction zone across the city.
And the article makes a very direct link between this massive infrastructure cost, this physical tearing up and rebuilding, and the average person's wallet.
Ah, so the cost isn't just an abstract city budget problem.
Not according to this source. The author stresses that the billions needed for this infrastructure can't just be magically absorbed. They have to be passed on to residents.
And this is where we get to probably the most shocking figure in the piece.
The rent increase.
Yes, the author throws out this number. The suspicion that rents for just a normal apartment could jump by 350 euros per month.
Wow, 350 euros on top of everything else.
Exactly. The article is clear this is before any normal market increases from inflation or whatever. It's presented as the specific price tag just for this climate conversion.
Okay, I have to push back slightly here, or rather ask for clarification. Does the author actually show the math for that 350 euro figure? Like break down where it comes from? Or is it more of a projection, maybe even a scare tactic?
That's a fair question. The source doesn't provide, say, a detailed line-by-line calculation from the utility companies, but the author implies it's a realistic estimate based on the total cost picture. Not just laying cables, but converting heating systems for potentially millions of homes.
So they use that specific, very high number to really hammer home the point that this cost is personal and potentially crippling for individuals, not just some abstract government expense.
Exactly. It's meant to feel immediate and unavoidable for the average resident.
And looking at the overall cost, the author is quite vague, but also alarming, right? They say the whole transformation will probably cost billions.
Billions, yeah. But crucially, the exact number is unknown.
So the narrative being built here is that the citizens voted for a green goal without knowing the final price tag. Kind of a blank check.
A blank check for chaos, the author implies, with the burden landing squarely on renters and consumers through these massively inflated costs.
Which naturally leads to the next stage of the predicted disaster in the article.
Right, the impact on jobs. The author claims that because of this 2040 goal, deindustrialization in Hamburg won't just continue, it'll accelerate rapidly.
Leading directly to significant job losses.
How does that connection work, according to the source?
It's pretty straightforward economics in their view. If energy costs electricity, heating go through the roof, Hamburg suddenly becomes a very expensive place to run a factory or any energy-intensive business.
So industries that need stable, affordable power, they leave.
They'd be the first to go, according to this argument, which speeds up the decline of those key industrial sectors.
And the author's conclusion from that is stark.
Fewer jobs, combined with housing becoming unaffordable, it creates, well, a potential displacement crisis.
So what about the people, the Hamburg residents who voted for this or just live there? What does the source say happens to them?
It doesn't pull any punches. The argument is that many Hamburgers think skilled workers, factory employees, tradespeople faced with soaring rents and vanishing industrial jobs, they'll lose their livelihoods.
And simply won't be able to afford living in their own city anymore.
That's the grim picture painted.
And the language used to describe these people is quite loaded.
Yes, listen to this specific term the author uses, economic refugees.
Economic refugees. That's a powerful, highly charged phrase.
Absolutely. It's clearly intended to shock. It frames the city's own environmental policy as the direct cause of forcing its own citizens out.
So they're not just moving for a better opportunity somewhere else, they're being driven out.
Driven out by financial hardship created, the author argues, by Hamburg's policy choices.
It paints this picture, a really cynical one maybe, of just massive outmigration. People leaving not by choice, but out of sheer financial necessity. Unemployment and cost of living pushing them out.
The suggestion is that prioritizing this absolute climate goal over immediate economic stability ends up betraying the very working class residents the city presumably relies on.
Skilled workers, industrial workers, suddenly priced out of their homes and jobs, forced to look elsewhere.
Exactly. Forced to seek a new life outside Hamburg.
Okay, so if Hamburg is, in this scenario, bleeding out its workforce due to, well, self-inflicted economic wounds, where does the author suggest these displaced people might go?
This is where the article gets really interesting. It takes a sharp turn into satire, but with a sort of practical edge.
Satire. How so?
The author pivots and suggests that another region in Germany, the Burgenland district, should actually seize this moment, capitalize on Hamburg's predicted crisis.
The Burgenland district. Tell us about them. Why would they want Hamburg's climate change panic refugees, as the source calls them?
Well, Burgenland is an inland district, and apparently they've had the opposite problem to Hamburg's growth. They've struggled with demographic decline.
Losing population.
Yeah, the article mentions they lost about 45,000 people over the last 25 years. So the author cheekily suggests this flood of people leaving Hamburg could be just what Burgenland needs.
Fresh blood from the north, I think the phrase was.
That's the one. A quick fix for their population numbers.
And the source claims these aren't just any migrants needing help. They're positioned as almost ideal newcomers for Burgenland.
Right. The article points out the advantages. Minimal language barriers, obviously, since they're German. And crucially, comparable education levels and skilled worker status.
Suggesting they could integrate quickly and easily into the local economy.
Exactly. Plug and play, almost.
Then the author really leans into the satire, doesn't it? With these marketing ideas for Burgenland.
Oh, heavily. It gets quite specific and playfully provocative. They start with a historical angle.
With Flemings.
Yes, reminding readers that the region successfully integrated Flemish settlers from the North Sea area, modern Belgium, way back in the 12th century. They settled near Naumburg, in a place still called Flemingen.
So the message is, we've welcomed Northerners before, we can do it again.
Precisely. A historical precedent for successful integration.
And then the suggestions get even bolder, almost like they're trying to steal Hamburg's thunder directly.
They really do. There are proposals for symbolic name changes, like renaming the entire district to, wait for it, the Hamburgenland district.
Hamburgenland. Okay, that's pretty direct.
Yeah.
Just to make the newcomers feel welcome, I suppose.
And the best joke, really aimed at a German audience familiar with city branding, involves the town of Hohenmülsen.
Ah, yes, Hohenmülsen. What's the suggestion there?
That Hohenmülsen could rebrand itself as the Hanseatic city of Hohenmülsen.
Right. Now, for listeners maybe not familiar, why is calling Hohenmülsen Hanseatic such a pointed dig?
Because Hamburg is a core Hanseatic city. The Hanseatic League was this powerful medieval trading group signifying wealth, maritime power, North German prestige. It's deeply tied to coastal port cities like Hamburg.
And Hohenmülsen, not that.
Not at all. It's a smaller inland town. Suggesting I could just adopt the Hanseatic title is pure satire. It implies Hamburg, by pursuing this climate path, has sort of forfeited its historical prestige, and Burgenland is ready to pick it up.
It's quite clever, actually. And they even thought about license plates.
Oh yeah, the level of detail is part of the joke. They point out Hohenmülsen could potentially use the license plate code HHM.
HHM, mimicking Hamburg's famous HH plate.
Exactly. A subtle little nudge to make the displaced hamburgers feel symbolically right at home. It's like social engineering wrapped in marketing satire.
Very specific.
And they cap it off by highlighting one absolutely undeniable advantage Burgenland has over Hamburg in this climate-changed future.
Let me guess. No coastline.
You got it. No fear of flooding from rising sea levels. It's the final practical jab. The inland region offers stability the coastal metropolis might lose.
It's quite the package. So the article basically ends that section with a call to action for Burgenland.
Yes, an explicit plea. Get those marketing campaigns going now. Start advertising to attract this fresh blood from the north. Don't dwell on past population loss, the author urges. Grab this unique, if slightly dark, opportunity presented by Hamburg's predicted troubles.
Okay, so let's try to synthesize this deep dive then. We've looked closely at one very critical article.
Extremely critical. It paints an almost apocalyptic picture of what happens when a city goes all in on climate neutrality, at least according to this author.
It frames the costs, billions in spending, those potential 350 rent hikes, widespread unemployment as fundamentally unsustainable for this society.
And the inevitable consequence, in this view, is mass migration. An economically forced exodus from a major German city, creating this new group of internal refugees.
Which leaves us, and you the listener, with a really challenging thought, doesn't it? A core conflict that this source really throws into sharp relief.
Which is?
When we set these ambitious, maybe irreversible environmental goals, how much economic risk is acceptable? And crucially, who ends up paying the price?
At what point, the source implicitly asks, does the cost of saving the city, environmentally speaking, becomes so high that it actually drives out the very people, the citizens, the workers it was meant to protect?
That's the uncomfortable question this particular analysis forces us to confront. Food for thought, definitely.
Indeed.
Okay, that brings us to the end of this deep dive. Until the next time. May your rents stay manageably low. May your streets remain gloriously unripped by endless cable laying.
And may all your district renamings be purely hypothetical and wildly successful.
All the best.